Hi parents, this is just a quick update for you regarding the Key Stage 2 SATs, which will be taking place week beginning the 9th of May for our Year 6 pupils. So what is it that's going to happen? The statutory assessment in Key Stage 2, well, we've got our statutory assessment, which is our national curriculum tests, which will be reported in the form of scaled scores, so we'll get back a child's score. And then we have our teacher assessment for Key Stage 2 writing, in which we have frameworks provided to us so we can assess your children. So there are statutory assessments, and then we obviously also have our formative classroom assessment, which is myself and Mrs. Ayton working with the children every day, helping us make a judgment, a teacher assessed judgment based on the children in reading, writing and maths as well. So not only do they have SAT tests, we will also have to do a teacher assessment for them as well. So we have the Key Stage 2 English reading paper, the spelling, punctuation and grammar paper, and we also have the mathematics papers as well. And the Department for Education will provide us a description of what it looks like to be at the national expected standard, and which we will then get back a raw score, which will then be converted into a child's scaled score. And all that is to compensate for any papers that are harder year on year or easier year on year. And so the raw scores might go up if the paper's easier, but then the scaled scores will increase as well, so that it matches up and levels out each year to compensate for those easier and harder papers, which is a bit like they do at GCSE. Okay. Each pupil registered for the test will receive a raw score, so we'll get back their raw score, a scaled score, and then you will also get confirmation of whether or not they have met the expected standard. So what will be assessed? Well, as I've said, there's one paper in reading, and they'll get a reading booklet and an answer booklet. There's a spelling, punctuation and grammar paper. There's also just a spelling paper, so 2 papers for SPAG. And then for maths, there's the arithmetic paper, which is quick fire fluency questions. And then there are 2 reasoning papers. And it's important to note that there are no calculator papers at all, so they have to do everything without the aid of a calculator. So 3 papers for maths, 2 for SPAG, 1 for reading. One other thing that's important to note as well is that the writing is continuous teacher assessment. That means we have up until the 30th of June to complete our continuous teacher assessment. So we will have to have enough evidence by the end of June to submit a teacher assessment for your child's writing. So we'll be looking really 5 pieces of writing to give us enough evidence that your child has met every standard for the expected standard. Some of your children will be working higher than the expected standard, which is greater depth, and obviously some children will be working towards the expected standard because they haven't quite got enough evidence yet to say they are at the expected standard. And then these will all be passed up to your child's secondary school to help make a prediction where they need to be at the end of GCSE. So, as I've said, SPAG paper, 45 minutes to complete question 1. It's lots of tick boxes, lots of matching up, drawing lines, and there will be some short writing questions as well, but it's a spelling, punctuation and grammar paper, so it's important to note they must spell accurately and they must punctuate accurately with a capital letter and a full stop, and no matter how many times we tell the children, they still forget. So please do remind them as well. And it's important to also note that these tests are marked externally. So they are not marked by anybody in the school. They are totally marked by somebody that does not know the children. Paper 2 is just a spelling paper, so we'll read out 20 spellings, and they have to put them in the place in the sentence where there's a line for them to write on. They have about 15 minutes for that paper, but we can work at the pace of the children. And here's some sample spelling, punctuation and grammar questions. So tick 1 box to show the part that is the relative clause. Well, which is a relative pronoun, so which is made of oak is that extra bit of information. And here they have to tick 1. It's important that they tick 1, don't tick more than 1, or if it says tick 2, they tick 2. Or which boxes would you tick? Well, then if it says boxes, they know they need to tick more than 1. The reading paper, which will be taken on Tuesday the 10th of June, is 60 minutes long, and they have approximately 3 texts to read, and then there's obviously an answer booklet where they answer the questions as well. We don't ever tell them to read the texts first. We say to read the first question, find the answer. Read the second question, find the answer. Read the third question, find the answer. That's what we tell them to do, because otherwise they would simply run out of time. And obviously it starts off fairly easy, so the first text will be the easiest and the last text will be the hardest, and we just tell your children to work as hard as they can all the way through, but they do know that it will get harder as they go, so they have to really use and try and get as many marks as they can in the first 2 texts. What reading skills are assessed? Well, it's our VIPERS skills, which hopefully you know enough about. So VIPERS stands for vocabulary, so what vocab's been used and why. So why has the word been used, what effects it have. Inference, so reading between the lines. There might be prediction questions, what predicted happens next, using evidence from the text. Explanation questions, so explaining their answer. Simple retrieval questions, so they'll be retrieving information, copying and putting it in. So they'll be sort of questions that are earlier on in the paper because they're easier. And then summary questions as well, which possibly would be a bit later on in the paper because they're harder. And here's some examples of some reading questions. So tick boxes, they could be giving 2 reasons, and you can see that they get 2 marks for that, but they must give 2 reasons, not 1 reason that they've just rewritten in a different way. Find and copy 1 word. The amount of times we see children find and copy, and they put the correct word in, but they copy the whole phrase or sentence, and so they can't get the mark because it says find and copy 1 word. Okay, so just something to be aware of. And then finally, the maths paper, or papers, they get paper 1, paper 2 and paper 3. Paper 1 is the arithmetic paper, which all children love doing because it's they have to be as quick as they can. So it will only have 30 minutes for that paper, but there's 40 questions. They have approximately about 45 seconds per mark for that, so it's really pacey. They have to be quick. We're really pleased that in our practice run we did before Easter, pretty much every child finished the paper, which is a big achievement. So it shows how far they've come from the start of the year. And then paper 2 and paper 3 is worded type problems, and they have 40 minutes for that. And it's usually, 20, 25 questions depending on the paper. So that fluctuates each year. And there'll be 1, 2 or possibly 3 mark questions on those papers as well. And as I've said, no calculators are allowed. So here's some sample arithmetic questions. So you've got some long division, some decimals, some long multiplication. They're just samples. There's fractions in there, decimals, percentages. There's lots that will be going on in that paper, and the children do enjoy that one. It's important to note that on a 2 marker, they must show their method. They might actually get a mark for working out, okay, but they're really strict on what they actually give marks for. Here's some examples of some reasoning questions. So you'd find these types of questions in paper 2 or paper 3. Some 1 markers. This would be a 2 marker along with this one. So here a pack of paper has 150 sheets. 4 children each take 7 sheets. How many sheets of paper are left in the packet? The children need to understand that each child takes 7. So if you've got 4 children, that's 28 sheets they've taken. And then they need to subtract that from 150. And they need to show their method to get the marks. Writing, we've been given a framework of exactly what each child needs to do to make the expected standard. And we work together with other schools. So myself and Mrs. Ayton have been on lots of moderating courses, and we've still got a couple to go, where we cross-relate our writing. So what we think is expected, other schools will submit, and we'll kind of moderate to see if we're working at roughly the same level, which is a really useful process. So we've done that, but myself and Mrs. Ayton are really used to doing this. But it's important to note that this goes on continuously. So we don't just give them 1 piece of writing and say, here we go, we're going to make a judgment. As I said, it will be over several pieces of writing, usually about 5, for us to gain enough evidence in order for your children to meet the expected standard. And we have until the end of June to get that evidence in place. So at the moment, we've kind of, the writing we're focusing less on because we're already getting prepared for the SATs tests. But once the SATs are over, we'll then do a lot based on the writing. And if you wanted to have a look at what the writing standard looks like, you can Google expected standard in writing and look at the Department for Education materials. It might just be interesting for you to look at what the government say is expected, for you to compare it to perhaps what your child writes like at home or what they've shown you. But we use these a lot to help us. Okay, and this is just the framework for reading, for writing and for maths, and it breaks it down into standards. So what an expected child does, and perhaps what a child that may be working at greater depth does, and then perhaps what a child that's working towards may be able to do as well. So as I've said, on Monday the 9th of May, you've got paper 1 for SPAG and paper 2, so 2 papers on the 9th of May, so spelling, punctuation and grammar. Tuesday the 10th of May, you've got the reading paper, so just 1 paper. Wednesday the 11th of May, you've got paper 1 and paper 2, which is the arithmetic and the reasoning, so 2 papers on that day. And finally, on Thursday the 12th of May, you've got just the reasoning paper only, but it's important to note that the tests must be taken on the scheduled days. Okay, so we can't pick and choose when we would like to do each paper. We're told we have to do these papers on those days. We're preparing them in class with lots of practice materials, lots of revision of stuff we've done before. lots of revisiting of different topics, and obviously we've done a run through as well of the practice papers we've done the week before half term. So they're used to doing it, and every child that I spoke to did actually say they quite enjoyed the run through, they found it useful, and actually it's not a big thing, and they find it quite an enjoyable week actually. Just preparing them at home. Obviously, we're sending homework home, so just supporting them with their homework, which is really good because it is all stuff that is helping keep everything ticking over, keeping all the plates spinning, which is really good. And obviously, they've had their parents' evening forms back as well, so anything that we said they need to work on there. If your child has got special educational needs, then we have the option to request additional time, which we're going through the process of at the moment, and possibly looking at putting them into a smaller room, perhaps with an adult one-to-one. We've tested this out during our sort of trial run week, and anything else that we need to discuss with you, we will discuss with you on an individual basis. But just to be aware that obviously we do understand that some children do have additional needs, and we can take that into account during the SATS week to make it as sort of smooth running for them as possible. So the Year 6 standard they get working towards, which means they haven't met the expected standard. They get the working at, which means they are where the government expects them to be, which will be interesting to see how that pans out this year, bearing in mind they've had a few years of disrupted learning. And then obviously they could get greater depth as well. That means they're working above the national standard. Okay, but you will only be told if your child has or has not met the expected standard. But you can ask us perhaps, or if their scaled score is above 110, then that would mean that they're working at greater depth. Okay, so you will get the results back with their reports, so sort of mid July really, and then these results are passed on to their secondary schools, so that it can help sort of make a judgment about what their predicted grade would need to be for GCSE at the end of the year. I've already talked through the scaled scores, but a scaled score of 100 means that your child is at expected, and that up to 110. 110 and above is greater depth, and then pupils score below 100 would be classed as working towards, and that starts at about 80. So we've obviously said we're expecting them to have a good night's sleep. That's really important. Please make sure they have a good night's sleep before. And we are providing a breakfast club on the 9th, 10th, 11th and 12th of May. So the children need to come in at 8:10, and it is expected that every child is at this breakfast club. Okay, please speak to us if you have any concerns. It's a really informal way to start the day. We have the music on, and the children will really enjoy it, and it's just nice for them to be able to chat with their friends. I will then do a PE activity outside with them after breakfast to sort of wake their bodies up, and then we will have some form of meditation to help calm and relax them before we go and sit the test. So it's a really nice way to start the day, and all of the staff will be helping to prepare food, the children really enjoy it. Obviously, if you have any questions, you can email us, you can dojos us, you can speak to us at the end of the day. Just a reminder that we've got Butcher's Coppice on the 11th to the 13th of July 2022, and the instalments of £10, £11.60 and £25 should have been paid now via school money. So please, if you haven't, because we'll be doing the next payment coming up after SATs that will be due, please make sure you're up to date on those and speak to us if you have any issues. But it will be a really nice way to end the year. So hopefully that's given you a bit more information regarding SATs week. If you do have any questions, please speak to us. But whilst it will be a very tiring week for the children, we'll make it as least stressful as possible for them. And hopefully they will actually quite enjoy the week, because it's off timetable, and obviously it's a very different experience for them. So thank you very much for watching. Have a very nice Easter, and we look forward to seeing them after Easter, ready to sort of get our final couple of weeks of learning in before the SATs take place. So thank you very much.